All right. Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing today? I am Audra Mitchell, head of the Massy Learning Institute and your moderator for today's session. We are really excited to have you all here today for what will indeed be an informative and thought-provoking session. It's great having so many persons from across the Massy group, as well as a couple external people join this session, so we want to welcome you all. So as advertised, this webinar is being brought to you by the Massy Learning Institute. And for those of you participating in this session for the first time in terms of a Massy Learning Institute session, I'd like to introduce you to our team, really our flight crew for today, right? So these are the members of the Massy Learning Institute team, just for you to get familiar with our members. And additionally, I would like to thank Terence Nimblett from Massy Technologies Infocom, who's here with us supporting the team today. So before we get into what is going to be a really exciting session today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Massy Learning Institute, right? So we've just put up just 2 slides, and this is the first one to tell you a little bit about us, our charter. You see we have on the screen here our purpose, our vision, our mission, our values, and of course our tagline. Now you can find this on our website, so I'm going to focus on 2 things as regards to us. Our vision. For the Massy Learning Institute, our vision is empowering individuals and organizations to be the best version of themselves. And if you look at our tagline, which is the last item, empowering you, creating a difference. And these words that you see here were all carefully chosen, because for us, we really align with Massy's purpose of being a force for good, creating value, transforming life. And again, the types of programs we bring to you are meant to reinforce this, hence the interest for the webinar. So again, for all the first timers, the MLI first timers, just to let you know a little bit about the sort of programs we offer. So we offer you a range of fee-based programs and services for all levels of the organization. And we have a couple of things listed here: leadership development and other training programs, individual and group coaching, team interventions. We do HR advisory services and consultancy services. And we have some examples here: recruitment, IR, change management, just to name a few. And we also deliver customized programs to our Massy, and our other external clients. We have some external clients. So we do provide training. So for those of you on this session who are external to the Massy group, you know, we do offer to both internal and external. And from today, an additional offering, which is the complimentary webinar that you're attending today, will now be part of our offerings. And there'll be a series of other webinars coming up. We call them our Webinar Wednesdays, Level Up with Massy Learning Institute. So look forward to that, right? So just one other thing before I hand you over to our presenter, because I know you're all excited to hear about this topic. Just 2 things. So why this topic, the future of work, and how do we navigate the new normal? Well, the future of work and this discussion really was relevant long before COVID. And you would have been seeing the video about the 4th Industrial Revolution that was showing. And it speaks about, well, what's required, right, in this new way of work, in this new world in which we're operating. And some terms: speed, agility, flexibility. And you remember the summary slide spoke about, as individuals and as organizations, we're going to have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So think about all this that was happening pre-COVID, and then COVID comes. So if which really forced us to speed up a lot of this learn, unlearn, relearn, and be constantly learning, right? So as you realize, this whole topic of the future of work and how it's evolving was relevant before, it's more relevant now. And that's really the reason we're having the webinar today, because it can be daunting, it can feel overwhelming. But if we prepare and we think about it and see how much we can plan in what is a very evolving situation, you know, how might we be better prepared for it in a way that works for us as individuals, because we're all different, right? So Ian will take you through a lot more about that. So just one other thing I want to tell you with regards to housekeeping, and it is this. Ian will do his presentation, and at the end of it, we will have a Q&A session. So on your computer, you will see a little icon with a question mark. We want you to go in there, and as this session is going through, post your questions in there. And at the end, we're going to try to accommodate as many questions as possible. You know, we will ask Ian your questions on your behalf, right, and have him respond to it. And if you, at the end of this, you've left and there's any question that wasn't answered, or you want some more information, feel free to reach out to us. And we're going to, at the end of the presentation, send you how you can reach out to us. So, without further ado, I am excited to introduce you to and hand you over to Mr. Ian John, CEO of Massy Technologies Infocom Limited, doing the topic, the future of work, how do we navigate this new normal? Ian will tell you a little bit about himself, but what I like to call him, I consider him the human Google, because, you know, he has a wealth of knowledge, you know, and that's what he's bringing. And on that note, let me share with you, Ian is going to bring his perspectives to you, his views, right? So this is to say that it's not necessarily a position from the Massy, you know, Massy Learning Institute, but really what he has seen, because he's well read, he's traveled, he pays a lot of attention to global trends and what's happening. So Ian will share with you his perspective, and that's why your Q&A at the end will be really important, right? So that you can probe a little deeper in terms of what he's saying, maybe why he's saying that, and get a better understanding. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're ready, because we certainly are ready to hand you over to Mr. Ian John on the topic, the future of work, how do we navigate the new normal? Ian?
Solutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, which is the digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
We need a different economic model that will allow us to meet the basic needs of every human on the planet, and that will be focused not on growth per se, but on maximizing human well-being.
We have energy technologies that can power our civilization, but how do we get it and implement it at the scale we need at a price that people around the world can afford?
If we're able to transform cities, to make them more efficient, then the impact can be huge.
We can use asset tracking, we can use IT, we can use 3D printing to decouple growth from the resource constraints we have.
The question of adding quality to quantity, it's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean energy.
Together we are fighting to preserve our fragile climate from irreversible damage and devastation of unthinkable proportions.
The prediction of 5 million jobs lost by 2020 to technology is serious, but the main question is, how will we define work? How will we share the wealth?
How can you have a doctor that really knows about data? How can you have a biologist that knows about medicine?
We have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts.
We need new education or new training.
We're working with a World in Motion in FIRST Robotics, trying to encourage students from third grade all the way up through the end of high school to pursue science, math, and different technologies.
This ability, technology, to change outcomes, to truly empower people that can create a more equitable growth.
Fourth industrial revolution has the potential to make inequities visible and to make them less acceptable in the future.
I was the first person in the world to be able to voluntarily move my legs while stepping in a robot. The cure will be possible if enough of the right people have the will.
We're seeing this incredibly exciting convergence of genome editing, DNA sequencing. Governments have a very important role to play in enabling the safe and effective use of technologies.
We need to take responsibility at every level of society to adapt to these technological challenges, which are redefining what it means to be completely embedded in this world.
Even though we have everyday problems we have to solve, we have to find a way to lay the foundations for the innovation.
So hello and good morning to everyone. Really fantastic. Good morning to you. Thank you for having us and welcoming us into your, for some of you, it's your homes, and for some of you, it's the office. But I believe for vast majority of you, you are actually looking at this webinar seated in your homes. And that is a really interesting development that we've had. I want to start off by saying congratulations to the Massy Learning Institute and to Audra and her team. I know this has been quite a lot of work behind the scenes, many years of work in terms of getting the Learning Institute going, and also to the leadership team at Massy headquarters for the foresight and the vision. And I think the timing is excellent. This is the inauguration, and thank you for being part of the first ever edition of the Massy Learning Institute. I'm very, very privileged to share with you this morning. This is certainly a presentation and a lecture that I have done many times to universities and business leaders, business groups, and to students. And it's a very, very, I would think, topical conversation. It was 3 years ago when I began. And today, I think it's even more critical and important that we understand what is before us. I'd start off by saying that this is about history, and Mark Twain, for those of you who follow Mark Twain, he says history does not repeat itself, but it sure looks familiar. I particularly like that saying, and another saying that I particularly like as well in terms of when you are looking at predicting the future is the one of King Solomon's famous saying that there is nothing new under the sun. That which is has been already, and that which will be has been. So pretty much in these two very wise persons, in their sayings, you find out that what is existing right now and the effects of what is existing and how it's impacting life and society. Certainly we can look at history, and we can look and we can do some level of inductive analysis and have some probability of what the future may be like. And so this is what it is today. I'm asking that we provoke some critical thinking and divergent thoughts. If anything you leave from this session this morning is really, how do you reassess the lens that you look at the world through, and what do you get out of the information when you look through those lenses? How do you use that information to allow you to craft your personal strategy as well as your business strategy to navigate? And I don't like the word survive. I much prefer the word strive. So how are you successful even in a very turbulent environment? So what are we talking about when we talk about the future of work? The future of work, we are saying, well, there's job loss, there are job gains, but in all, history tells us that with these disruptions, there are enough opportunities created to offset the disruptions and the losses that come out of the disruption. I think the gap and the issue has always been, are we prepared to retrain ourselves to be able to take advantage of those opportunities that present themselves? So the conversation of workforce transformation in this digital age is very, very topical. Now, let's throw the big beasts into the mix, COVID-19. And what has it done to the digital age? And what has it done to workforce transformation and the future of work? And so we're going to look at some of the developments. I have some data that is updated data. Some of the data is good news. Some of the data is not good news, but we have to take the information and we have to use that information to craft a new future for ourselves, for our businesses, our communities, our societies, And certainly we are seeing now that we also have to play a very integral part in the leadership role of our country as well. So the fourth industrial revolution, now we have the Internet of Things, and this, by most scientists and most of the industry experts and futurists, basically this is unlike any industrial revolution that has taken place before. And we know the disruption that the first industrial revolution brought about in the 1800s thereabout, when most of society, or all of society, and countries and nations, and the wealth of persons, families, societies, communities were all based on agriculture. Agriculture, and very labor intensive through human labor and animal labor. And then came the industrial age of electricity and mass production, and that shifted and displaced hundreds of thousands of income earners, or persons who earn an income from farming and agrarian type activity. And similarly, from the mass production of the Industry 2.0 in the 19th century, we would have seen that again mainly was an industrial age of manufacturing. Then came the third industrial revolution, and many workers were displaced. As a matter of fact, history shows us that this is the age where we saw the cities, most of the cities became cosmopolitan mega cities, where workers and families actually migrated closer to the cities, where they could have actually made a living and earn wages to support their families. So throughout history, we've seen huge swaths of society being displaced. And now what is before us certainly is this fourth industrial revolution, or the 4IR as we call it, is one that is certainly having an impact. There's been a lot of studies which I want to just go through and share with you. What is the conversation that we're having this morning? These are some of the research coming out of the World Economic Forum's committee, which looked at how technology would impact different industries and societies, and core sets of skills or core sets of competencies that persons have. And so one of the predictions simply was by 2020, we would see 35% of core skills being changed or disrupted. And then the bigger news was, well, by 2030, we will have somewhere between 400 and 800 million, nearly a billion workers who will be displaced by automation. So there's a very extensive study on this, and I would urge you to take a look at it. Go online, and it's available. It's called the Future Jobs Report, World Economic Forum, and you'll see by country or by industry or by skill set what skills are being disrupted. Now, I do have friends in different parts of the world who've already been impacted by this, and they have, auditors and actuaries who have lost their jobs. Particularly, I have know a couple folks in Japan, and they were replaced by automation algorithms, basically doing all of the commands and all of the work that they used to do. But now they can pivot to other areas, and that's the conversation that we want to have this morning. So skills disruption, and what is driving the skills disruption? And if there's skills disruption, is there opportunities that are coming out of the skills disruption? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes. And I think that's where we certainly want to harness our attention this morning. So when we talk about the future and we talk about the disruption and digital technology, and that disruption really started several years ago, but climaxed last year into this year, with a lot of companies and industries really looking at the areas of automation, AI, robotics, we come to the term that the future belongs to the fast. And what does the fast mean? Well, certainly in the COVID pandemic environment that we are in, we are finding out that those who are very quick to respond to change and to adopt are the ones who are literally able to strive in this environment. So when we say the future belongs to the fast, we're saying that, can you adapt? Audrey used the words agile. You know, are you agile? And everything that I say this morning or share with you this morning, I want you to look at it from the context of, from a personal standpoint, but I also want you to look at it from business, community, family, looking at your kids in terms of their future, and also looking at country, what do we need to do and how do we come together as a people throughout the Caribbean and throughout Latin America, because I do know that we have some of our Colombians colleagues with us here this morning, so welcome to you as well. But how do we come together as a people, localized, regional, in your homes, in your communities, and recalibrate your thinking so that you are now able to adapt, and in this very what we call turbulent or extremely uncertain, volatile environments. Those are the words that are being used to describe the environment that we now live in, especially in a COVID environment. And so what comes to mind is the whole mission and vision of the Massy Learning Institute. Continuous learning is going to have to be one of the characteristics that you now build into your mindset, in that you're constantly looking at the environment and you're constantly learning from the environment. And it's going to help you in terms of developing the type of leadership that is required, again, personally, again in your home, again in your community, again in your workplace. The world requires leadership now, as you can see. So continuous learning is one that I would certainly love for you to keep and to say, I'm going to adopt a mindset of continuous learning. So this is one of my favorite, and I live by this, and I will share it with you. It's from Alvin Tesla. It says, the illiterate of the future will not be the people who cannot read and write. They are going to be the people who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that is a fact. Much of what we have learned, we now have to unlearn. Much of the perceptions that we hold and the views that we hold, the lifestyle that we cherish, we'll talk about that in a little bit, we now have to unlearn. There is a new reality. There is a new environment in which we now have to adapt, and we have to do it very, very quickly. So one of the words that it's a very, very key word, and it's certainly something that you want to be mindful of. I'm going to share with you what is the secret sauce, as we say, to success in this potential digital era that we are in. And this word is a very key word. It's the word exponential. Now, exponential, I've been using this word, and this word is what is being used to describe digital for many years. But I think within the last couple of months, it has been tainted with the COVID-19 virus because of the exponential growth of the virus. And they keep showing us that exponential curve of the virus. And the whole conversation of flattening the curve comes out of the realm that it's growing exponentially, and therefore it needs to be flattened. So when we look at exponential is really looking at r to the power 0, and it becomes exponential if 0 becomes greater than 1. So it is a mathematical equation, but there is some science behind how businesses can grow exponentially, or how someone can develop their skills exponentially. So when we think about the internet and when we think about connectivity, especially in this particular time, and there's some slides that I will share with you to illustrate the exponential curve. If you want to succeed, and we are talking now in the digital realm, we're talking in the realm of digital networks, the law of networks, the law of increasing returns, which talks about exponential growth. The more large and the more increase in networks, a network in the sense of neural networks or individuals or markets, is the more powerful that network will get. So the more it increases is the more powerful it gets, and it becomes exponential. Hence the reason why social distancing is the only way to break the cycle of COVID-19, it's really separating the networking of people together. So understand that everything that we do, we operate in a world that is defined by mathematics and it's defined by science. So social distancing is not just about staying away from your friend, it's actually about the mathematics and the science behind it to flatten the curve and to ensure that the spread of the virus is not exponential. But it's applicable to the realm of the digital world. So let's look at Professor Kotler and Diamandis, who developed the Exponential Framework and basically said that anything that can be digitized, anything that you can put your hands on, and you can convert it to binary codes of zeros and ones, it becomes digital. And if it becomes digital, then you can hop onto the digital curve, the exponential curve, and then you can now see the growth of that particular service. So takeaway here is there a product? Is there a service that I have? Is there a skill that I have as an individual that I can now provide that skill onto the digital curve? Can I digitize my skill that I have? And this is usually a 3-hour lecture, as I said, so I'm going to have to run through very, very quickly some of the steps so that you really get something to take away. So let me give you one idea. There is a forecast of, and I forgot the body, but if you go on to Google, you'll see it. It's forecasted that we will have a shortage of 20 million teachers worldwide in the next couple of years. As a matter of fact, we already have a shortage of teachers worldwide. I can't remember the figure right now, but millions. And by 2030, we will not have remedied the problem. We will still have a shortage of 20 million teachers. Now, is that a skill that you can develop? Is that a skill that you can develop in your part-time? Can you speak 2 languages, and can you develop that skill to train persons online? And if you do that, now you can do it online and you've jumped on the digital exponential curve. Similarly, in business, when we look at our businesses today, is there something that we do in business that we can actually either part of the business function, part of the business operations that we can digitize? And if we can digitize, then we have the ability to promote or sell or provide access to that as IP on the digital exponential curve. And there are a number of steps that actually this curve take you through. It's actually a full lecture, and so this morning we don't have the time. But to take you through very quickly, when we talk about digitalization, we talk about technology, business, services, which becomes exponential once it becomes digitized because it's represented in ones and zeros. And once that happens, it becomes information-based technology. It hops onto the exponential curve. And what do we mean by the exponential curve? Well, the exponential curve in this case represents the billions of people who are connected on the internet. Yes, that's your market, that's your audience. It's no longer confined by the boundaries of physical boundaries of a country, the geographical boundaries of a place, or even to some extent, as we know, legislation and laws and the limitations of all of the physical things that we have to bear in physical markets. So once there is a service that you can convert to digital, your market is now billions of persons, billions of individuals, and your market, as we say, the oyster becomes your world. The entire world becomes your oyster, sorry. So there are certain steps that this technology or this service will go through, and at some point in time, the word disruption isn't there. So, you know, when we think of some technologies that certainly would never survive, and we say, oh, that's not going to make it. Cryptocurrency is never going to make it. Bitcoin is never going to make it. That's the deception age. And then we get to the stage where it is actually disrupting. And in this case, it's disrupting industries, businesses, lifestyle, communities, families. So when we talk about disruption, digital disruption, and what is coming in the 4th industrial revolution, this is a step at which we are saying that jobs will be disrupted, industries will be disrupted because of these new services that are actually going to be displacing the traditional ways of doing business. And then we have the other phase, dematerialization, where it becomes cheaper and it becomes more available. And I like to give the example here of the encyclopedia. Many of you, if you are over the age of 25, maybe 30 actually, you know of the Britannica Encyclopedia, Collier Encyclopedia. These were Google-like in books, volumes and volumes of books. That has been replaced. And, you know, we have the case of Kodak film being replaced by digital. So democratization actually deals with when the technology becomes so available and it becomes so pervasive. And that is exactly the time and the era that we are in at this point in time. So very quickly, a couple of cases for those of you who were around and would have liked to take a vacation in the 80s. Probably leading up to the early 90s, you would go to what was called a travel agent, and you know, you would call a travel agent, and then you would say, I would like to go to a vacation somewhere. You would choose a destination from a brochure. You would go into that office, and then you would make your payments in that office to the travel agent, and that would have been the 80s. And then came the period where we started to see digital transformation come into play, and we started to see where components of the travel industry began hopping onto that digital curve. And with those different levels of services and with those functions moving onto digital, we realized then that we can get from the full inspiration to post-trip without ever having to go to a travel agent in a physical office. And so I know we still do have some travel agents around in some countries, but by and large, for most of us, we don't do that anymore. We go through the process of looking and doing a search, and then doing the booking, and then preparing the trip, and all of the tickets and all of the aspects of planning actually is done online. And while we're on the trip, we're actually posting photographs and sending videos and sharing with our friends. So this is what it used to be in 2016, and now think about today. Today, if I want to take a vacation, I now have over. In 2017, it was over 6,000 AI automated systems that are actually assisting me in finding and choosing and marketing and selling and promoting and providing data about my likes and my preferences about that trip that I want to take. So highly automated industry, and think about those who worked in the industry, the physical offices and buildings, they have been displaced. So very, very quick examples of transformation and how it's impacting industries. These are several, you know. Kodak certainly is a big one. When Kodak invented the digital camera, but decided that they were making plenty money and still very lucrative on the film. And they decided, well, we'll continue doing film because film is making money. Well, they were then replaced, bankrupt, and have since then replaced by the cell phone and replaced by other digital capture type applications. And very, very much so overnight, we've had organizations. If we look at Iron Mountain, it's a company that was founded to do storage in 1951, 6 billion. 1951, they remained at 6 billion cap, and they were met with the rival Dropbox in 2007. It's a total digital company, and they're now $10 billion in cap. Hyatt's physical buildings, Airbnb, no physical buildings, but $20 billion in worth. So we see a trend actually in terms of how digital is disrupting different industries, and this trend is likely to continue. One of my favorite is Uber. Uber, you know, if you look to the bottom right of your screen, you'd see the average New York City taxi license, what they call the license medallion prices, what it was worth. Before Uber, it was worth just about $1 million. Every single cab was worth $1 million. The license to run a cab was worth $1 million. There was one individual who held 113 of these licenses, and he suffered catastrophic exponential losses actually. When Uber arrived, the value was driven down. So disruption is the new normal, we agree. And there are a number of digital platforms, digital native, I call them, companies that are striving really well in this particular environment. Post-COVID, we see Tesla's share prices going up, and we see Amazon actually prices being stabilized, again, because of the ability to continue to provide a service or business services, even in an environment that is very, very disruptive. And so there are some examples that I would share with you. Online banks, these are all native banks. And again, these banks continue to grow in terms of cap, in terms of adoption, in terms of increased revenues during the COVID-19 period. So what are we likely to see post-COVID? And that's what I want you to begin to analyze, and how am I going to calibrate my skill set to take advantage of that. So let's talk exponential. Here's exponential for you. This is COVID. 2019, Zoom actually went from 10 million meetings daily, April, 300 million. And let's not talk about the security issues that they've had, but this is exponential. Again, they were agile, they were elastic, they were adaptable, they were flexible, they were ready. And so when the change was required, they were able to open up the pipes and allow for more users to be able to jump onto the exponential wave. And they saw an extreme, what we call hypergrowth during this period. Exponential, not very good. Travel industry being impacted, again, physical business, food, lodging, air transportation, other transportation, recreation, and primarily because the demand was not there. But again, it's a service that cannot be provided digitally, and therefore it questions whether or not that these businesses are resilient to shock waves. And again, a lot more to be said here, but in the interest of time. The oil price certainly is one, and this is before the negative value of oil, and we thought that this was really a bad performance, but this was also an exponential drop, early on in the month of April, when it slumped to just about $10, $13 a barrel. Exponential increase in poverty. Again, physical world, bricks and mortar. Again, we show that this is exponential in terms of how many persons have been pushed into poverty in less than a month. And certainly this is a different conversation that we will probably have to discuss. What are the impacts? And I think I do have this slide with some suggestions at the bottom. So here's the exponential curve, and exactly the law of network, the law of increasing returns. And it just shows you that the virus was able to spread because there were so many people who were connected and so many people who were in very close proximity of each other. And therefore it increased exponentially. And hence the reason why social distancing is the reason that we use for flattening the curve, again, to see that it is scientific and mathematically proven. So here's one that we in most countries that you are in right now, your kids are home with you. My kids are all here with me. Well, those who live in Trinidad with me are all here. And they're gonna be here apparently until September. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Exponential increase in online learning, in entertainment, in esports. This is certainly an opportunity. If you were able to pivot in this direction, you would be able to benefit off of the fact that students are home and they're captive, and they are going to be that way for some time. Okay. Exponential, as we talk about pivoting, this is certainly Etsy, and Etsy shares soared because they were able to pivot to selling masks. And these are the cloth masks for the face wearing. So they saw it very early and they were able to pivot. And because of that, they were able to increase their relevance. So think about agility again. How do I get my workforce to be able to move in a particular direction away from the very traditional ways of doing business? And this really speaks about agility. It really speaks about flexibility. It really speaks about adaptability. and the ability to respond in real time, removing the barriers and removing the bureaucracy to be able to allow an entire organization to shift. Now, for those of you who know friends who have displaced, who've been displaced by this pandemic, one of the things that you can recommend is, and I've seen a lot of folks who have sewing skills have already begun sewing and marketing masks. We will need masks for a long, long time in all of the territories. So if you have friends who used to do hairdressing or nails and makeup, then it may very well be that they need to retool, reskill, learn how to sew, and come up with very, very creative ways of promoting those services, maybe online as well, if they can get to the level of logistics that requires shipment, etc. The gaming market, again, fantastic, depressed years of 18, 19, and here comes COVID and exponential growth back up to 1.6 billion in 2020. Not very good for cars and the automobile business. And so we see all over the world that car sales have plummeted, primarily due to the lockdown and the demand and the retrenchments. And but there is a silver lining for this industry, and we'll probably talk about it if we have the time. Well, here's the darling of COVID-19, Netflix. Again, a business that has been elastic. They can adapt, they are agile, they can flex with the demand, and so too their variable costs can flex with that demand. And in flexing, they are certainly reaping the rewards in terms of business and share price and loyalty, and certainly will be around. As a matter of fact, Netflix is causing Hollywood and also the entertainment industry some grief, because it's probably going to be the new normal for quite some time, where persons may not want to attend a cinema. And so Hollywood and Bollywood and all these other production industries are likely going to have to do their releases online. And obviously that will see a huge impact in terms of box office prices, etc. So Exponential, I think this one was nuclear. This went through the roofs, right? This was the fact that in 1 week, there were 3.2 million people in the United States claiming for support from the Labor Department. And we know that the claims are now up to $20-something million. So again, there is opportunity here. What is the opportunity? It requires some critical thinking. I saw Jamaica. Congrats to Jamaica. They had their first shipment of toilet paper to the United States, and that is, again, the ability to adapt and the ability to respond to opportunities very, very quickly. So, stock market swings, certainly the new normal. And what's interesting here is I put this to show you that if you're banking on the stocks, or you're banking on good news, or you're banking on stability, or you're banking on a straight trajectory to where you want to go, this is really a telling story. The level of uncertainty is evident. And therefore, what we're seeing is exponential swings. These are exponential swings in both directions. And with exponential swings, it really requires that you, if you are an investor, that you stay as an investor for the long term, unless you're trying to short the market. But really and truly, it is not for the faint-hearted, because the news are good today because of an announcement, but tomorrow it's bad because oil didn't, the contracts and the future contracts for oil did not take the value that it should have. So again, this is really an example of how exponential is swinging in both directions, and therefore it really drives home the point that we are really in an extreme uncertainty and volatile environment, and this is likely to continue. So if you can ponder that, normal no more, that's right. Normal no more for many around the world. And there are already discussions by many of the agencies with regards to how do we create this new future? How do we create this new future? The information that I shared with you with the World Economic Forum about displacement of workers and disruption of workers, at this point in time, I can share with you the facts and the data are showing that that is now accelerated. There is already a work at play by many industries to accelerate Industry 4.2. And therefore, we are likely to see an acceleration of displacement, disruptions as companies and industries and businesses look at what the new normal would be. One of the silver lining coming out of COVID-19 is the environment, and the fact that the environment was able to begin to heal itself, and there was actual evidence all over the world. For the first time in 50 years, persons in Delhi in India could have seen the Himalaya mountains, and the fishes began to enter the Venice Canal and animals began to strive again. So environmentalists are going to ensure that the agenda of climate change and renewables, those are going to be top of mind going forward. So let's look at some of the trends for post-COVID, what the world will become. And these are all based on the discussion and the charter from what I've seen. And I'm just sharing these with you so that you can begin to formulate your personal strategy in your mind or your business strategy in your mind. But certainly digital twins are going to be real, and they're going to be with us very quickly. And digital twins really is a technology that allows you to duplicate an organization, a practice, a piece of machinery. So for instance, an entire oil platform will be replicated in a digital virtualization space, simulating everything that is happening with that oil platform in real time, including the controls and the management of that oil platform. We are likely to see digital twins of humans, which we call singularity, and this is also going to be accelerated based on the fact that we are seeing many companies and countries talking about contact tracing, and in contact tracing they want to know where you've been, who you've been with, what have you purchased. And this is going to be enabled by 5G, and it's also going to be enabled by digital payments and NFC. So certainly you want to look at digital twinning and what does it mean. Digital twinning also adds resilience to your business in that you will be able to function or operate in a situation where you cannot function or operate in a physical environment or in a limited capacity. So for instance, think about the supermarkets right now. A digital twin would allow them to operate like an Amazon. You place the order online, it's delivered to your home, it's delivered to your door. You can drive curbside and pick it up. So digital twin is certainly going to be one of the big winners past COVID. AI is at the seat of everything, machine learning, automation, again, digital twinning, but AI is going to provide much of the automation and the algorithms that we need to be able to facilitate a lot of the computerization. Chatbot, which allows for customer service. And certainly this is one that actually took off in COVID-19, where many of the chats, many of the help desks, many of the telemedicine facilities were being facilitated. The WHO with some partnerships were actually facilitating COVID-19 diagnostics using chatbots and AI behind the scenes, and this is likely to be developed further. Immersive technologies is here with us to stay. Esports definitely took off during COVID. Telemedicine is going to be one of the big areas of growth, and of course online homeschool, online platforms are going to take off. So anything to deal with immersive technologies is going to be with us for a very long time. And of course, not to waste, we've seen a number of food packaging and food plants shut down and manufacturers shut down because workers were not able to get to the plant. And definitely industry is already looking at full automation in terms of automating parts where they may have had individuals working in factories. So this is likely to materialize in a very quick space of time. Autonomous systems are probably going to be accelerated. Already autonomous cars are on the roads in some countries being tested, in others prototypes are on the way. But Hyperloop is certainly going to be a phenomena that is going to be with us, and Hyperloop is Elon Musk and Virgin Richard Branson, who've spent billions of dollars developing the technology. It gets you from mid-US to the east side of US in roughly 30 minutes. So it's a whole lot of science. I advise you to take a read, look at it, but it certainly will impact the airline industry. flying cars already with us, and it is likely because of social distancing that these plans are going to be accelerated. As a matter of fact, Dubai and a number of other cities have already launched their flying cars, and I urge you to look at it as well. So it's a real world of digitalization and transformation taking place. It is going to be accelerated post-COVID-19. Renewables, one of the good stories coming out of COVID-19, with the oil price being where it's at, many oil production facilities have already shut down. A number of them have also filed for bankruptcy. The futures of oil actually continues to not look optimistic, and therefore we are seeing a push by renewables actually, particularly with the fact that it has been proven that the world can heal itself in a very short space of time. So certainly an area where you may want to look at in terms of developing expertise or a new line of business, or simply educational information for your kids as a possible future part as well. Quantum computing, yeah, it looks like a giant chandelier, but quantum computing finally will have a role, and the role that we've seen certainly coming out of this COVID-19 is that typically vaccines were developed in labs, and developing a vaccine in a lab took many years to do. But now with quantum computing, you are now moving from developing vaccines in a lab to modeling vaccination using quantum computing. And that certainly reduces the time from months, weeks, and possibly years to very, very short intervals of probably hours or days. So this is a big development, and certainly there is going to be huge demand for services that lead to quantum computing in the near future. Food, yeah, lots of talk about food security, and certainly it's an opportunity to, if you have a green thumb, but it's also an opportunity for business. It's also an opportunity for developing a skill, and also protecting yourselves in terms of food security. But also it can be something that can be commercialized because each country now is looking at food security as we get deep into what could potentially be a supply chain issue for a number of months to come. So definitely an area where you may want to develop some skills. And we won't go through these predictions, but definitely transformation is important, and the conversation and the topic this morning is for you to really look at your skill set, your levels, and understand how will it be disrupted, and if it will be disrupted, and when, and therefore what are some of the steps and the actions that you can take immediately to ensure that you are disrupting your business environment personally, socially, family, to ensure that you are striving and not surviving. So again, we talk about intelligent automation, liquid workforce, on-demand, elastic, platform economy. Everything is a platform, predictable disruption, understanding the waves of change when it will happen. And of course, the issue of security, etc., becomes a mine. So we go back to the point of having seen all of that, the world in how many minutes, we come back to the mantra of we definitely need to unlearn and relearn. And this really plays into the point of continuous learning. And it questions a lot of what we've known before. Do we hold to those as truth, or do we begin to look at the reality of what is happening before us? Famous saying, many of our learned sets of core economic principles years ago saw their power early and often in careers. And this built a situation which often clash with new economic realities. And the key here is new economic realities of digital competition. So one author said we need to move to new economic models, move away from growth and move to well-being of individuals. And that's really an economist at the United Nations. And it's something that is being postulated by the United Nations. But for us, certainly our personal and business aspirations, we need to understand what those new economic models are and the realities of them and how we take steps. So certainly what we're saying is normal is no more, absolutely no more. no more, in all spheres. And what should we be doing as individuals? This particular slide, I brought this slide back to show that, you know, in an instant, we had a shock of COVID-19, and in an instant, 20% loss in income through billions of people around the world. And this is an old stat. Actually, this stat is last month. And now it's many, many more, as Africa is also being impacted, and Latin America is also being impacted much deeper. And so what we have is, if you're familiar with Maslow hierarchy of needs, we were on the trajectory as individuals to strive to esteem self-actualization, recognition in the workplace, climbing the corporate ladder. And for many now, because of the shockwave of COVID-19, they have been struck all the way to physiological needs in terms of all I need right now is food, water, clothing, family, shelter, the important things. And today we salute all essential workers, all those who are here with us, and you've been out in the field during the COVID-19, ensuring that customers continue to get services and continue to be able to operate. We salute all of our essential workers. Because at this point in time, we understand and we now have to recalibrate our value system to understand that many of the things that we held up as being important and critical may not be as important and critical. But certainly this reality of Maslow, and they always show us Maslow hierarchy of needs going up, right? You are seeing up to self-actualization. But I share this with you to say that there are many persons who have been impacted negatively and quite frankly don't know where their next meal is coming from. But this really forces us to do what we call some personal reflections in these times. And in that personal reflections, it really asks us to question our value system. What do we value? Is it really important? And it is an exercise that is not very easy, but I urge all of you to do this audit of oneself, audit of your strengths, your opportunities, your weaknesses, your threats. And in doing that, you look at the gap in terms of where are the areas that I think I need to improve to ensure that I'm relevant and to ensure that I can strive and not just survive. And take very, very active and immediate steps to be able to close those gaps. And it may be a training online, it may be going and helping in a garden, it may be learning to sew, it may be learning a second language, it may be developing a second income stream to be able to support that which was lost by maybe a spouse or maybe a friend or a partner. And also speaks to our social responsibility of helping those in need at this point in time. So suffice to say that the normal is no more. And we understand that there is a responsibility by each and every one of us to ensure that we succeed in this new normal. And succeed we will once we put our minds together and we look at the world through a new lens and we look at the gaps and we do the hard work to develop the skills or to retool or to learn something new. But just having yourself armed with the knowledge is enough to propel you to do something and do it very, very quickly. For yourself, for your business, for your community, for your family, and most importantly now for your country, because countries are realizing that they are not as resilient as they thought they were. And it requires leadership, and it requires all of the people coming together to provide that leadership from the home to the community, to the businesses, to the actual society. So with that in mind, I wrap up, and I think I went over by 1 minute. But yes, this change is relentless, and the pace of change across industries, businesses, we must rewrite the new rules of engagement. We have to. These new digital industries are beginning to redefine relationship with partners, governments, and society itself. And as the pace picks up, as it becomes more turbulent, as it becomes breakneck speed, your company and you as an individual will need to employ new strategies, models, and technologies to remain competitive. So I wish you well in this new era. And if you arm yourself with the information and you do the work, and you take decisive actions, you are going to be one of the persons or businesses that will succeed and will come through this much stronger than you went through. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Ian. There's one quote that I'm taking from you. You spoke about succeeding in the new normal, right? And I really like that, you know, not trying to thrive, but really, how do we succeed in this new normal? So, you know, it's just over 11 o'clock, but we have some really, really great questions. So we want to this time hand you over to Susanna, who will take you through some of the questions that we've gotten here that we'll post to you. And I'm hoping that all of you can stay on, you know, to hear the responses, because we have some really good questions. So I'm handing you over to Susanna now, who will be fielding the questions to Ian based on what you've asked us in our Q&A.
Thank you, Audra. And good morning, everyone. So thank you for posting your questions. Ian, our first question is security of information in a digital age. With each technology leap forward, what security measures can a company look at to protect information and its users?
So certainly this is a very technical question. I think the question of security is one where we do have solutions for security, and when I say we, in that they are proven solutions for security. As we go into this age, so I can tell you that the issue is not corporate world so far. The issue is now with everyone at home and with the kids at home, and with the kids accessing information, or with you accessing business information from home. I think that's the vulnerability issue. So I would suggest that this is certainly one that you have a conversation with your IT manager, because there are technologies that are available and are available in the group as well. So VPN would be one of them. For instance, if you have a VPN as someone accessing systems in the offices, definitely you want to access those systems through a VPN. If you have kids at home, then you want to look at stacking probably security type applications or devices on those kids' devices. But you also want to look at firewalls, hardening your firewalls at home as well to ensure that you're not vulnerable. So, but this is certainly one of the easier ones in terms of there are available solutions, there are available technologies that yes, I would advise that you reach out to your IT department. If there's something more specific, you can always shoot an email and we can have that discussion, because we now talk about security from an ethical standpoint, from a trust standpoint, from a data standpoint, which is really looking at 4.0 and looking at the trust systems that are required and the legislations that are required. So hence why we talk about providing the leadership from a country level, because it certainly requires countries to have trust regulations, legislations, cyber security laws as well that allow you to be able to operate with resolve if there should be any breach in your.
Okay, thank you. So we will take the second question. How can we prepare the older work population to unlearn and relearn, especially in the area of technology?
Okay. So this is actually a really good question, and it's certainly one that comes up, quite a bit when I do the session, and I'm hoping it's someone who's in the older population who asked the question. Learning is, again, I will come back to the famous saying of Mark Twain, which he said, I never let my learning or my education get in the way. I never let my schooling actually get in the way of my education. And what he was saying really was that education is lifelong. And schooling is very different from education. And I think that's the conversation we were having this morning, where you have to continuously adapt. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset. So I know many persons, including senior citizens, who have been able to adapt to this new technology and also use a number of the technologies to be very productive in work. And it starts with training. It starts with having a change management mindset, and also following change management as an individual, and their change management for individuals, right? But it's also comes to the point, a lot of times persons are indentured to the old way of doing things, and they are fixed. So the first step is to not be indentured, not be fixed to the old way, and not have the attitude of, you see that new technology, I'm not doing that, I'm not going there, that's for them young people. That's the very first thing. That mindset has to be removed. And once that mindset is removed and you are now open and willing, you find that that mental block, it shifts. And so I can say for many years, I have seen many persons transitioned over the last 20-something years. I have seen many older what we call baby boomers, or the Xers before, transitioned into the technology realm and became but it begins with mindset, and then it begins with training and patience, right? Because it may take a little while to get it, but patience. Yep, I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. So on to our third question is, what elements or resources from the present situation, that's the normal situation, will likely remain essential in the new revolution?
Yeah, so that's a lecture by itself. There is actually a number of economic and scientific models actually that dives very, very deep into that. I will tell you that one of the items that come to the forefront is certainly any function that requires human emotions and requires judgment, certainly because the cognitive systems of algorithms and AI will never ever be able to replace a human's cognitive systems in terms of empathy, in terms of emotions, in terms of despite the fact that they're trying to emulate it. But any sort of jobs or roles or skills that requires that will continue. And so you can look and see how that plays into many of the roles and many of the functions that exist today. But one of the key learnings coming out of the World Economic Forum is that some jobs will not necessarily go away. Instead, we see man with the machine, which is persons working with systems, working with algorithms, working alongside to deal with the computing aspect, which our brain is very limited in handling, but then taking that results or that data and then being able to make a judgment. So for instance, I give an example of the police officers in Dubai right now who have intelligent glasses, and the glasses actually would point out and say to them, this person is armed with a weapon. Or they have robotics that are working with them that says this person is a wanted felon, dangerous. And the police makes that the judgment there to say, okay, I'm going to arrest him. I'm not going to use force. I'm not going to use. So certainly emotions, judgments, those human emotive skill sets that cannot be replicated will continue to remain with us. But a very good question.
Okay, and the next question is, this is actually from a CBM engineer out of Massy, Colombia. Specialized engineering services which require being in front of the machine to analyze its condition, in which different clients are visited every week. How can these services evolve or evolution in these pandemic scenarios?
Yeah. So, good morning, Colombia again. So, very good question. If you have a chance, you can certainly take a look at digital twin and the technology for digital twins. And simply, what will enable digital twins would be the IoT industries, where many of the equipment, machinery, and tools are actually coming with sensors embedded. And these sensors actually are providing live real-time data in terms of the status or the information of the actual equipment and machines. Certainly what we're seeing in many of these engineering shops, factories, especially in countries like Germany, for instance, the entire automation is actually based on the IoT technology, and therefore clients actually have the ability to sit remotely and see the processes and see the state and see production and see the various stages of production without having to actually go to that facility. I do know that there are some companies right now that are actually using cameras, and they're using those camera systems to actually walk through the customers with regards to the production stages. There's one company that we actually have an affiliation with that uses Oracle visualization technology as well to simulate what is happening in the workshop or simulate the stages to the clients without the clients having to be there physically. So certainly the areas that you want to look at is digital twinning and virtualization as potential technologies that can help you. And actually virtualization and the virtual reality is actually one of those that is very, very quick to deploy. So I think there is good potential in that area there for you.
Okay, on to our questions. I am the export sales rep for Massy Gas Products Trinidad. What changes in my job can I expect apart from the travel aspect?
Okay, and the travel aspect, I guess, is the individual traveling. For clarity.
Yes, I'm assuming so, Ian. That besides travel,
yeah,
they have recognized that travel is going to change. So in terms of the other aspects of their job for Massy Gas Products.
Yeah, so I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to make a personal. I think what is required here is definitely you need to scan the environment, your industry, and everyone needs to scan their industry and look at how your industry is being impacted worldwide. What is happening in that specific industry worldwide, and particularly with the main supply chains of that industry, because the main supply chain suppliers of that industry will dictate the tone and the shift that will take place in the industry. And that's important because when you start looking at competitiveness, you're really looking at efficiency models, you're looking at cost models, and how are you driving the costs down and how are you driving the efficiencies up. And so you constantly have to be scanning the environment to see what's happening because you want to ensure that you continue to be competitive. And if your competitors are driving the efficiencies up, you want to know what are they using to drive those efficiencies up, because you certainly want to be able to benchmark and get on to that same level of efficiencies. Otherwise, you're going to be uncompetitive. So for anyone who's trying to understand what's happening with their job personally, I suggest you look at the information in the industry that you're in. Look at it globally, but certainly look at how that global impact is likely to affect you in your local scenario as well. And you'll get a very good idea of what's going to happen. It may start in Europe, or it may start in the United States, or it may start in Asia. But clearly we see now that because we are living in a true global society, that those changes are going to be rapid. And it's no longer going to be years before you are impacted. It's probably going to be weeks. Or if someone is being really learned, such as your boss or your CEO, they probably would want to enforce the change immediately. And so I hope that helps. It really says that there is no prescription because today it may be the prescription is X, but because of the change being so rapid, that prescription may not be valid for tomorrow. So it really calls for us to scan the environment, the industry that we are in. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Ian. So we have loads of really, really good questions, and I know in terms of the time, we may have to do a follow-up something to get these questions answered. So what I would ask Ian, though, is just pose the last question to you as it relates to your industry. And
Yeah,
this is... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we could take a couple more. If you have a lot, we could take a couple more questions.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Because we have some really good questions. All right, so the question I was going to ask you, what innovations will Massy Technologies be implementing?
Yeah, so fantastic question. So no secrets, absolutely no secrets, but Massy Technology certainly, some of you may not be aware that we actually had a remote work policy, and there was a plan a year ago. We started a plan to move all workers who can work from home to do exactly that, work from home. So at the time of COVID-19, this was no surprise to us in that we were already deploying work from home. And so remote work is going to be permanent for us. It certainly will be permanent for us. We are reducing locations because we are very much more productive. 2 hours of traffic is no longer needed. We don't need 2 hours of traffic to get into Port of Spain one way and then 2 hours in the evening. So remote work is definitely permanent for us and for employees, and it will give us the scale in costs and, of course, higher efficiencies to be able to operate again. Technologically speaking, we continue to enable many of the industries. So for this particular period, many of our employees are supporting essential industries such as banking, retail, networks, for critical businesses, mission critical systems in government across the region, again, payment systems. So we continue to develop those technologies. Our focus certainly would be in digital platforms and certainly moving quite a bit of what we do to those digital platforms, and also enabling our customers in the realm of how do they become nimble by providing them with digital transformation and moving them onto some of those platforms that we are actually currently developing, and also some of them we already have live in the environment, such as our cloud services, our data center services, our remote telephony and network operations, and also our outsourced managed services. So we continue to actually build on the business model of disruption. And I hope that helps.
All right, great. All right, another question. What does change management look like for this new normal?
Yeah, good question. I mean, certainly disrupted. Change management has been disrupted. Why? Because this was very sudden, extremely sudden. And for some businesses, it was all a matter of survival, not having the ability and the chance to plan and to, go through the stages of planning and delegating and actioning and, all of the steps that we usually take in business. So for most, while we talk about agile and adaptability, certainly change management has to be looking at ways that allow businesses to be prepared. And in that preparation, it all has to do with scenario planning. So suffice it to say that going forward, what we're seeing right now is change management is happening parallel to the shocks. And so folks are working from home. Now, how do we help them while they're at home? How do we help them to feel secure? How do we help them to be productive? So the change management is actually happening parallel to the shock. And because there's so many unknowns going forward, it means therefore that change management is going to have to be more flexible, more adaptive, more nimble. And yeah, the future belongs to the fast. that would be the word I would use. But that was a good question, and I certainly think it requires some more distillation for the practitioners.
Great, thank you, Ian. So we're going to go until 11:30, so we're going to ask a couple more questions.
That's fine.
So there was a question here that was asked with regards to how, and there was a lot of, many persons like this question as well. How do we engage unions in this future new normal where there are competing interests? Specifically, increased digitalization may result in loss of jobs, which runs counter to the traditional interest of unions.
Yeah, so I think the issue here is, and let's be mindful that the union represents the employee. So the union is the employee's representative. And the union's interest, hopefully, is the employee's well-being and welfare. So this is certainly going to be a time where you know, it's going to be a very difficult time for both the union, the organization, and the staff, if staffs are being impacted. What I would say is that it certainly requires an education of either the organization with the representative union in terms of bringing them on board and letting them understand how this industry is impacted, how the industry is being impacted, and what is the likelihood of the disruption in the foreseeable future. And this is talking about COVID outside, this is talking about digitalization outside of COVID. So when we take it out from the realm of COVID, that's the route. I mean, in the realm of COVID, if a business cannot continue, if it can't succeed and it's failing, then obviously what has to be done, the business environment dictates what has to be done. But certainly post-COVID, or just looking at pure digitalization, it requires conversation with the union, it requires sharing information with them, updating them, and finding a way. So I do know of instances where the union would say, well, you can't give this person this job to do because this is a new function. And therefore they refuse to allow individuals to be trained. And then what happens is the organization cannot continue to be competitive because they are stuck doing the things that they need to do operationally in the old era, and their cost structures are high, but the competitors are actually operating on the new cost structures because they don't have the unions to deal with, or the unions' positions to deal with. So it is certainly a situation where the organization can become very uncompetitive, and then it can lead to the demise of the organization, or the demise of the same worker that the union was intended to protect in the first place. So it has happened within recent time, actually, within our country, where unions have refused to take an understanding point on what the true position is, and they've held to their ground, and then the organization has capitulated and actually died. So it's a very delicate conversation that has to take place, and it requires openness, it requires dialogue, it requires a certain level of maturity on both sides to be able to work through this, because the employee, the worker, will have to be retooled anyhow, and if the business fails, then the employee fails. So no need to hold a very firm position, but the industry is moving in this direction. So it requires some dialogue and some deep discussions with open mind. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Ian. And I'm really with you, because as an HR practitioner, we're really gonna need to partner with the union. And I like your thought about educating them. You know, so if you're doing training on maybe a topic like this, you know, invite your representative, as Ian was saying, to attend a session so that you know, they understand that, you know, the company is trying to work within these dynamics, and really we see you as a partner, because ultimately, as Ian said, if the company doesn't succeed, then we don't succeed. So the last question, how do we ensure our organizations remain viable and sustainable throughout the waves of digital transformation?
Yeah. So this is certainly one that requires visioning in terms of looking at what the future holds for that specific industry, that specific business. And in terms of understanding how can you play in that new environment. So it may very well be that the industry is being disrupted to the point where it disintermediates your business, or it disintermediates aspects of your business. But if you can see down the road very early the impact, the shock, or the disruption, then it can allow you to have enough runway to pivot to a new line of business. And that new line of business is exactly the point that I was making. It's equivalent to someone who's been a teacher for their entire life, and at 45 years old, they decide, you know what, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I think I want to be a doctor. And I give this example because I do have a very close family friend who actually did that at age 45, decided, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I want to be a doctor, and went ahead and entered med schools and got a job here in Trinidad in the medical fraternity, and then moved to London several years later, and now lives in Australia for 6 months because he's practicing in Australia, and he lives in London for the other 6 months of the year. So when we talk about vision and we talk about being adaptable and also being flexible and being open, I think in terms of business, you have to see what does the future hold. And that's why we do strategic planning, because a strategic plan is really an exercise saying, well, how do we ensure that we succeed and survive for the next 5 years? And if the existing markets or the skills that we have are not in demand, then there is no use for us. So if there is no use and no demand for services or skills or goods or products or services, is there something that is going to be in demand? And it may be totally green field, blue ocean, however you want to call it. It may be divergent, emergent, definitely not emergent. But yeah, we need to probably look into this new area of business and investing in this new area of business, and can we retool some of our people and get them to function in this environment? Those are the types of conversations that we need to have as business leaders. But yes, we also need to, as employees, take responsibility for our lives and not say that our career and our lives is responsibility of the organization. We also need to take responsibility, and in the same way, we need to look and say, I don't think this environment is going to be something that is going to be around for in the next 20 years or the next 10 years or the next 5 years. So I think I want to begin to go to school and retrain or retool myself or learn a new skill or continuously upgrade myself. So I think that question is an excellent question, and it really symbolizes all of what we were discussing today in terms of, can I pivot depending on the demand for new services, for new opportunities. There is an opportunity in many countries for food and agriculture and food production, and is that something that we can pivot into? Is that a sector that we can play a role outside of the places that we and are we well positioned within the group to do that? The answer is absolutely yes. So excellent question.
Right, great. Wow, so great information and really good questions asked. And as we said, unfortunately, we weren't able to attend to all. So we'll look at a way. We have your questions, we'll have them saved, and we'll find a way that for some of the additional questions, maybe based on Ian's availability, we bring him back just to answer some of those other questions, or we do another session. And I like that point that Ian ended up with, and it really reinforced something he spoke about during his presentation. We each have personal responsibility and accountability in this as well, right? So Ian shared the idea of the SWOT, doing a personal SWOT, So we hope that, as you come off the call and over the next couple of days, you sit down and you think and you reflect on that personal SWOT. What is it you need to do? You know your situation, you know your circumstances. Is there a skill that you wanted to try that for all of us, there's some things we may be fearful of, and with this new disruption, it is really forcing us, and I'm using the word forcing us, to step into that uncertainty and try something different. All right, not an easy thing, but really a requirement in this new normal. So on behalf of all of you and of the Massy Learning Institute, I would like to thank Ian for doing yet another amazing presentation, very informative, thought-provoking, so we definitely will be bringing him back, all right, to do some more sessions with us. So all of you, we want to thank you for joining us on this, our first MLI Level Up Wednesday. And as we said, we're going to have more coming. The next complimentary webinar is scheduled, as we see on the screen here, May the 13th, 2020. So please stay tuned for details. We're going to be sending it out. All right, and please feel free to reach out to us. At the bottom, you'll see our website, www.massylearninginstitute.com. You will see some of the other programs that I would have alluded to earlier, that we do a series of programs. We have programs that are there. Link up with your HR companies and kind of see in terms of budgeting, planning, your development, what are the possibilities there. So we really want to thank you. We thank Terrence, our production engineer, and I want to thank the MLI team, all right, because this could not have been possible without their hard work as well. So we hope to see you again at another one of either our complimentary sessions or one of the other paid sessions that we'll be having. So take care, everyone. Be safe and stay home. Take care.